My dear friends, we just heard many beautiful reflections this afternoon from different priests and givers, even bishops. So I think there's no need for me to go into many details. Now, since the center or the central the central figure of our ceremonies this afternoon is the cross, I think we'll just concentrate on the cross as a tree of life. Now, we know that the cross is the principal symbol of Christianity. And the reason for this is that it reminds the world of the sacrificial love of Christ, which he demonstrated by his death, by his passion and death. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 23, St. Paul said, "As for us, we proclaim the crucified Christ." We proclaim the crucified Christ. And he added further that the message about Christ's death on the cross is nonsense to those who do not believe. Nonsense to those who do not believe or who are being lost. But for those who are being saved, it is God's power. So to the Jews of Jesus' time, the cross was seen as a burden for criminals, and suffering as a punishment for sinners. That is why they thought it was out of place to believe in someone who is crucified. They did not find any sense, any meaning in believing in someone who is crucified. On the other hand, the Greeks were renowned at that time as thinkers and philosophers, saw the cross as a sign of foolishness. So, for them it was hard also to understand how God uses or can use foolish things to express his greatness. Now, it is interesting to know that one of the early monks of the Eastern Church in Constantinople by the name of Saint Tudor the Studite, a trace of the cross he could sense the cross in some biblical events of the Old Testament. And that's interesting to see how he was able to kind of discern that. First, he saw the trace of the cross on the pile of wood that was used by Abraham to burn his son Isaac. And on that pile of wood, this particular monk, Saint Tudor, saw a trace of the cross. You know, the sacrificial aspect of it. Abraham was asked to sacrifice his son, and here he saw that image of Jesus also being sacrificed on the cross. Second, he saw it on the wood of the Ark of Noah. He saw the trace of the cross on the wood of the Ark of Noah, in which his family and all the animal species that were indicated to him to save were saved. Moreover, he saw a foreshadowing of the cross and the wooden staff of Moses. You know, Moses, whenever he would use his staff, may mga mangyari ba? Like, one time, he used his wooden staff and it changed water into blood. Changed the water into blood. At another time, it devoured the false snakes of the magician. And at the biggest part there, it divided the Red Sea when it was time for the Israelites to cross to their salvation and to their freedom and liberation. And finally, he saw an allusion of the cross in the staff of Aaron that blossomed on a single day and showed him to be the true priest. So these were kind of things that this particular saint saw in these Old Testament events. Now, for all believers today, the cross is a symbol that gives meaning to the trials and troubles in the world, as well as a symbol of love and victory. We are made to understand that trials are an inevitable path towards the attainment of salvation and victory. And Jesus himself affirms that. Jesus himself affirms that in the Gospel of Matthew, for instance, chapter 16, verse 24, when he says, "If anyone wants to come with me, he must forget self, carry his cross, and follow me." Must forget himself, carry his cross, and follow me. So, when we look at the cross for us symbolizes the sacrificial love of the one who hangs on it. Who hangs on it? Jesus himself. It is a clear proof that he laid down his life for us. And it challenges us to do the same for our brothers and sisters. That we be ready also to let go of whatever is dear to us and precious to us, even our life, for our brothers and sisters. It has been said that the early fathers of the church even interpret the 4 cardinal points of the cross as symbols of love of Christ. Parang, when you look at the cross, na parang nabuuduan, no? Ang love of Jesus. Sinabi nila, according to them, no, na the 2 points of the vertical line, the vertical points signify the height and the depth of Christ's love. The height and the depth of Christ's love. And the horizontal points signify the breadth and the width of Christ's love. So sana no, every time we look at the crucifix, nakatabon siya ngayon eh. Pero sana that will come into our head. That could help us to remember what happened. Why did he go that far for us? So this interpretation, actually, when we look at it in relation to the words of Saint Paul, are closely related, no? When Saint Paul pronounced these words when praying for the Ephesians to have the strength to grasp the breadth, the length, the height, and the depth of God's love. One day he wanted to pray for the Ephesians, and then he was asking for that particular grace, to have the strength to grasp the breadth, the length, the height, and the depth of God's love. The 4 points of the cross. Now, the message of the cross maybe is paradoxical. It is a paradox. Because it seems to contradict itself. But in the contradiction, ano ang makikita natin? We find an inherent truth. The truth of life through death. No? Life through death. The death on the cross, in other words, brought forth new life. Now, in this context, then, we can understand why the tree of death turned into a life-giving tree. At the start, a tree brought about the fall of Adam. But in the new dispensation, a tree has brought about the glory of the new Adam, who is Christ. This is so because by his cross, he has redeemed the world. So, my dear friends, Good Friday is truly a day to pause, to reflect, to meditate, and to think of the meaning of the passion and death of Jesus Christ. Sometimes when we read the Bible, we read oftentimes this part of his life. But sometimes we take it so much for granted. Naging familiar na tayo masyado itong part na to sa Bible, and then we just go through it and then that's it. Forgetting na malalim ang meaning niya. This is also a time to reflect on how his wounds have brought healing to many, and how his death offers a ticket of salvation to everyone. So here we are made to understand that the cross has a pride of place in Christianity, just as the incarnation and resurrection are important landmarks in the Christian salvation. So the hope of resurrection then gives meaning to the passion and death which we commemorate today, which we try to relive today, Good Friday. The cross, therefore, is a symbol of hope, which gives out the message. And what is that message? No crown without a cross. No cross without a crown. No pain, no gain.